Inshallah and Ashe. Blessings to you, my energetic beings. It is I, Tonya D, and welcome to Meet Me for Coffee. Today's guest is the founder and CEO of Behold Retreats, Jonathan DePotter. He's a bespoke wellness service. He facilitates journeys of self discovery and transformation, supported by scientifically proven benefits of plant medicine therapy. Some juice there. And Jonathan is passionate about raising awareness on benefits of plant medicine therapy and the potential it has to improve well being, mental health outcomes, and so much more. So, this had led him to launch Behold Retreats in 2020, providing curated programs incorporating a memorable plant medicine retreat that it is safe, legal, and highly supported setting. He spent his career working in strategy consulting and clients across Asia Pacific, defining and delivering digital transformation programs. So, after many years in New Zealand, Jonathan moved to Hong Kong to work with Accenture. And most recently, he lives in Bangkok as a country manager for the boutique consulting firm Capco. He felt that despite an objective great life, career life, good friends, and much success, there was something intangible that was missing. So as a result, he took a sabbatical, years of travel through South America, where he attended his first ayahuasca plant medicine retreat in Peru, where this experience was transformational. And in his expanded state of consciousness, he was shown directly the mindsets and the behaviors that were keeping him from reaching his absolute, what I would call absolute potential. Returning to the corporate world, he was surprised to find he was more patient, empathetic, and productive, more so than ever before. So he then began researching the world of plant medicine and facilitating these magical retreats. So, with all of that, let's welcome Jonathan to the stage.
Thank you, Tanya. What a great introduction, and I love what you said at the top there in terms of energetic beings. I think we're going to have a great conversation today.
Absolutely. I think everyone's an energetic being. I just don't think they've tapped into their energy side. So, with that, can you tell us something about your corporate life and what made you really enter the world of psychedelics?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I had a pretty blessed life by any modern standards within the majority of my career. I lived and worked 10 years in New Zealand, and then subsequent to that, it's been about 10 years now in Asia, in Hong Kong and now in Thailand, as you mentioned. And I guess about 5 years ago now, I just reached a stage where everything was going pretty good in life. I had a great team. I had the support of my company. I was getting promoted pretty regularly. But I just remember looking myself in the mirror, and I was an atheist at the time. And I just felt in the very core of my being that something was missing. And I didn't know what that something was. And so, despite having come from hippie parents and open minded parents that were pretty spiritual, I had rejected all of that early in life, and I didn't possibly think that the answer to what was missing could be spiritual in nature at that point in time. But lo and behold, I was traveling and wound up at one of these retreats with a couple of friends of mine, and it really blew the door off the hinges into the realm of spirituality, and it's been a very deep and meaningful search for myself for 3.5 years, and now for about the last year and a half, establishing Behold Retreats to, guide others along these journeys and try to help them avoid some of the mistakes that I had made along my own path.
So, what exactly is plant medicine and how does it really help in reconnecting the self and reaching one's true potential? I mean, I think it kind of probably pops your cherry on top.
Yeah, well said. So usually when people are referring to plant medicine or psychedelics, they're referring to the naturally occurring psychedelics. So that could be psilocybin, even though that's a fungi, strictly speaking, it's kind of within the family. San Pedro or peyote, which are cacti that are found through Central in South America, a bit in North America as well. And one that's grown very popular in more recent times is also ayahuasca. And so that's the combination of two plants brought together under, sometimes with third and even fourth plants. And so it varies a little bit in its true nature by tradition. And of course, there are many, again, across Central and South America. And then there's some that are lesser known. So, for example, 5-MeO DMT, which comes in quite a number of forms, both plant-based, synthetic, and also from a toad, as some people are familiar with, and also plant medicines from places that are further away. So, for example, iboga, which is typically comes from Gabon in Africa. So these are kind of the entheogens, or the plant medicines, or the psychedelics, and they share properties in that they can, I would say, amplify our sensitivity to our own internal energies. They provide deeper access into the subconscious mind. There's a gentleman who was advising us in the past, and one of the descriptors he used that I always loved was non-specific amplifiers of the subconscious. So it's not that they're necessarily positive, it's not that they're necessarily negative, they are neutral in nature. And so they're very powerful in terms of reconnecting mind, body, heart, and spirit in the ways that they should be connected. And so through that experience, we tend to be shown the things that are keeping us from our true potential, the healing opportunities that we have, in order to elevate our consciousness and raise our vibration, so that we can ultimately live each day with more joy, more peace, more love. And so while this work is not for the faint of heart, it certainly has benefits to those who in their very being feel the calling, and feel that potentially this could be a path that could be right for them.
So how could somebody maybe find the right practitioner or guide to approach when it comes to starting their plant medicine journey? And not only that, like what would be like, I guess it would be the call to take the journey.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I always encourage. Some of our clients come to us and they're curious, but they're not yet sure, and so I always pretty much say the same thing to them, which is number one, do you feel like you understand enough about this space, not just the good experiences? As this space becomes more commercialized, then there's I think a stronger desire to amplify the good and kind of subdue some of the more challenging experiences that can be had. So I very much always encourage people to take the time and the energy to really educate themselves, and then two, to not just rely upon media in terms of, oh, this seems to be a holistically good thing, but rather to look within themselves for development of their own motivation. So why is it that I myself feel attracted to doing this work? So when we get clients that say, "Oh yeah, I've had two of my friends that have done this, and I want to do it," it's like, well, I get that, and we all take social signals from the broader collective. But maybe let's take the time and the energy to make sure that you feel like this is really right for you. And then as part of that, always again encourage people to actually understand the various medicines. And it's likely that through that process that they will feel that one resonates more with them than the other. And then the other choice that we present to our clients is, do you want to do this in a group context, or do you want to do this in a private context? And so those are two very different ways to do this work. So to come back to your question, I would always encourage people first and foremost to do some of that groundwork research, and then second to that, to the greatest extent possible, look past any reviews, look past any recommendations for friends, and try to connect with people whom you've actually seen a transformation take place. So hopefully those people exist within your network, or maybe your network's network. And what you're looking for is not just people who have had a self-described life-changing experience, but actually I would say people who, from the outside in, you can see that they've had real changes to their life. So that means probably quite significant changes to vocation, quite significant changes to their social circles, perhaps quite significant changes to how they spend their time and their energy. All of those sorts of things. When people have had a real transformation, it's very likely that quite a few of those things have shifted. So I think, there's a lot of people out there who declare that they've had a quote unquote life-changing experience with these plant medicines, with these psychedelics. But the question I would always ask is, yes, but have they changed their lives? And I think those are two very different things. And you'll find that the group of people who've had a life-changing experience is very large, and the people who've actually changed their lives is a very small subset of that group who've had a life-changing experience.
So what are the common mistakes that people make with plant medicine, and like how could you avoid those? I feel like there's people out there that are they're searching, but it tends to be just like a household plant, if you will.
Yeah. So look, there's no right and wrong as such in relation to how to do this work. It's just that I, through my own experiences, recognize that I was really pursuing this in earnest and trying to do it, quote unquote, the best way possible, attending, some of the best retreats that are on offer out there. And I realized after about 3.5 years on that path that actually I was missing quite a bit. So, the pieces of context that I'd add before I describe a little bit about things to look out for is that if you go to any of the retreat aggregator websites that are out there, what you'll find is that these retreats are universally rated as 5 stars. So that tells us a couple of things. It tells us, number one, that people are having positive and profound experiences, which is great. We like that. And number two, people are not able to discern quality, and that's kind of fits my own path and my own journey in relation to this space. And it's not to say that all people in this industry, I truly believe, are doing their utmost best. They're coming at this from a heartfelt perspective. But whether or not there is actually the expertise there is another question that's a little bit hard to. It's hard to see from the outside. And so again, that's why I always encourage people to look past the 5 star reviews and try to actually connect with people who've had real transformations. And if that's the case, then usually they've been back a couple of times to a similar sort of the same retreat, or working with the same healer or facilitator, or what have you. So a couple of the mistakes that I was making that I think um, are pretty common in relation to this is that number one, the way that I see this work now is that it's 80% mental and emotional work, and that's what sets up the 20% with plant medicine to be as transformative and as positive as it can be. So what we try to do with our clients is really to help them prepare for the experience before the retreat, and after the retreat to help them integrate the experience so that they're able to take the guidance, the insights, the downloads that they've received and improve quality of life. So what we typically do before retreat is, number one, we help people get really clear on future self. These experiences, these medicines respond to intentionality. So the more deeply we anchor a belief about who we are going to be in the future, then the more likely it is that the plants respond in kind, and these experiences can show us the things that we need to be able to release in order to bring forward that future self into the present. So that's one, is helping people get really clear on future self. The second is surfacing mental and emotional blind spots. So we've all got mental and emotional blind spots. And when we talk about, this future self, clearly there's something that's keeping you from that today. So we actually get to work on that ahead of the retreats themselves. And so our coaches or our therapists, depending upon the needs of the individual, will actually work through that with them in terms of identifying, okay, what are the patterns of mind that you're going to be looking to rewire? It's often limiting beliefs, fear-based thinking, any negativity of mind, all of that sort of things, and getting those to the fore so that people can become actually more conscious and aware of some of their ingrained neurological patterns that are not serving them, and fundamentally they're not them. And so negativity of mind is a big one in relation to that. And most of us have it. We're kind of negative self-parenting going on. I think we can talk a little bit more about this, but there's some exciting science out there from the National Science Foundation. They talk about the stats of what's actually going on in most people's minds. And when you hear the stats, it's scary stuff. So that's one. And then the last piece that we do to help people prepare is emotional. So we really want to help people obviously release emotions, and emotions are stuck in the physical, the energetic body. So whether it's the shame, the guilt, the fear, the grief, the apathy, the anger, the pride, all of those lower level emotions that typically we have suppressed and repressed, whether it's from childhood trauma or experiences where we just didn't feel like it was the right time, or we weren't empowered to actually feel our emotions at the time. And so a lot of it has to do with tooling people to release their emotions, connecting with their emotions, and then tooling them to be able to release their emotions. And again, when that preparation and that intentionality plus those tools comes into the context with the plant medicine, then in those moments when powerful lower level energies are being amplified, then we're able to expand and release into that experience as opposed to contracting away from it. And so that can make quite a fundamental difference as well to the quality of the experience and the breakthroughs that are available for people when they're working with the plant medicine. So it was a bit of a long monologue, but hopefully provides a bit of context in terms of what we do pre-retreat.
So, what advice would you give somebody who wants to experience plant medicine therapy? And also, it sounds like it's not like a one and done. You might need to do a series over time and
Yeah.
space, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And in terms of selecting a practitioner, I would always encourage people to, again, spend the time and the energy and speak to a number, right? So you probably would benefit from looking at 15 to 20 different places, and then understanding which of those 3 to 5 are on your short list, and then speaking to those 3 to 5, and coming with some hard hitting questions that around where you're at, and whether they can guide you and help you. There's a lot of these retreat centers, again, despite the best intentions, they're actually retreat centric, right? So what they do is from day 1 to day 7, they invite you into the retreat. There's 20 other people there. You all sit in a circle, you drink medicine, and then, the week's over, you go home, and they're on to the next retreat. So they're retreat centric. They're not necessarily centered around what you're going through. And so what we try to do a little bit differently for most of our clients is to provide that a little bit more guidance around that. So for anyone who's is is pursuing plant medicine, I would very much encourage them to get that guidance, because without the mental and emotional work, it's just so difficult to actually get the breakthroughs that relate to the ego structure. And so spend the time and the energy, find the right coach, find the right therapist, and begin working with them. And it's likely that once you found that person, they're going to actually also be able to guide you towards great experiences. Because if you want to be working with people, obviously, who know this work. There's a lot of therapists out there that are like, oh yeah, sure, we can work with clients that are doing psychedelics, but never done psychedelics themselves. And that just kind of fundamentally doesn't work, because they haven't walked the path. So, in exploring this, sometimes clients come to us and they're like, oh, I already have a therapist. And it's like, yes, but you're going to another dimension. And I think you might want an interdimensional guide versus a talk therapy guide that you've no doubt know, love, and trust. But, this is a different realm.
I
So I
love
don't know if
that.
that answers the question, but hopefully that's helpful.
The interdimensional therapist. I'm going with that. So there's also like the other side is the integration part, right? It's not one and done. You kind of have to go through integration. So, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, to answer the other question that you asked, is I think some clients, they go and they have, an incredible experience or even a challenging experience. And they say, look, that was powerful, but I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. Now, whether or not they do is another question for another time. Sometimes you just need a cool off period. And other clients are like, wow, that was, I've cleared 50 years of bad stuff in 10 days. I'm coming back again in 2 weeks time. And so I say to clients, sometimes they're asking like, is this one thing going to fix me? And it's like, look, this is the elevation of consciousness. There's no end to your potential and the potential of elevation of consciousness. Not that you need necessarily plant medicine to do it, but it certainly can speed the process up. There's no right and wrong in terms of if you return, if you don't return, how often you do something like this. It's very much individual. And so, it also relates to the speed of integration. For some clients, you speak to them 3 or 4 days after the retreat, and they are guns blazing in life. That everything's lined up. They've got clarity. They're bouncing out of bed every morning. They're doing their integration work. They're meditating. they're exercising, and you're like, this is great. This person, is taking care of themselves in a way that they never have before, and you can just feel the energy. Other people, perhaps they're a little bit, they're finding it a little bit more challenging to go back to work, for example, because it's a reflection of a different level of consciousness than perhaps where they were at pre-retreat. And so perhaps they need a little bit more guidance. There's still a lot happening for them in their relationship with their kids, perhaps, all of these sorts of things. And so, I have some clients that I still chat with that came on retreat with us over a year ago and are still integrating the experiences, especially at nighttime. They're still having breakthroughs, they're still having developments. And that's also beautiful, right? Because it means that she's continuing to get value and continuing to elevate consciousness without further plant medicine retreats. And so that's also amazing. And so it really depends upon the individual, depends upon their experience. It depends on to what degree they take the tools seriously versus just the plant medicine aspect seriously. And to the extent that they're able to continue to apply those after a retreat.
So, how could psychedelics help solve kind of mental health global issues? Like, because I practice shamanism, I work with different indigenous technologies, um, and I see. I mean, I'm assuming different plants, based on where they're coming from around the globe, carry different frequency, vibration, and energy based on, the environmental area too. Like, I mean, I'm going interdimensional myself right now, but that's kind of what I'm like, carrying the vibration of the energy of the place. It has to kind of carry that frequency too.
Very much so. And it's funny because I've actually never spoken about that. But, for example, some of the healers that I work with personally, they buy their chocolate mushrooms from a place that they sing mantras to the mushrooms every single day. And so, they're very high energy, high vibration, very well cared for. And now what you see is, of course, the commercialization and corporatization of these medicines, and people are having very different experiences. Equally with the clinical trials, they're taking synthetic psilocybin for all the clinical trials, and they are great with the mental and emotional work. And obviously, they've isolated the molecule psilocin, and they're able to administer that consistently to the patients that they're treating for these mental health issues, right? So it's most of the narrative and the dialogue and the interest today is around helping people that are suffering from what I would describe as lower levels of consciousness, right? So that's the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, the addictive disorders, all of those sorts of things. And we can go into the physical stuff as well, but I'll focus on the mental for now. So they're great with the medicalized approach, but they're overlooking the energetic entirely. And so in contrast, if we talk about the ancient wisdom traditions, down the Andes or in the Amazon, they are used to doing this work within the context and culture and community of the people who live there, and they're doing this work as a rite of passage. It's not a banker that's just jumped on a plane, from New York and gone to spend a week in the Amazon, and so they don't really have, with full respect to the wisdom traditions, they just don't have the mental, they don't have the context for a lot of the intergenerational traumas that a banker from New York is coming with, and they don't necessarily have the right container to be able to help prepare help them prepare or integrate the experience. And so what we're trying to do is to bring together a little bit of the best of all worlds, in the sense that the people who know the mental and emotional stuff have done their own work with plant medicine, and then getting prepared to work with healers who can actually do the energetic work during the actual plant medicine experience themselves. And what those healers are fundamentally doing, there's a lot more complexity to it than this, but at a fundamental level, they are transmuting energy on behalf of clients. So as these powerful dissonant energies are coming to the fore in the experience, healers have developed their energetic channel to such an extent that they're actually able to bear some of the load from you, so that you don't get the full brunt of what you might have otherwise experienced. And I can certainly speak from personal experience, as well as what I've seen from our clients when they understand the difference between sitting in a circle and drinking medicine versus having a healer working on you. It's night and day in terms of the experience in the realm of the possible, or the realm of the impossible, indeed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally understand that. The energetics part for sure. It's like you have your own guardian of the galaxy out there, being
I
like
love
your,
that.
right? That's what I'm getting. So,
Yeah.
what is one thing that your program did for your clients that you didn't expect? Like, I'm sure it's galactic, otherworldly.
Sorry, you just broke up for a second. Say that again.
I said, what is the one thing that your program has done for your clients that you didn't expect? I'm sure it's like, I mean, I get the environment, like you said, indigenous people, they've stayed on their path. It's part of their community, and everybody has a purpose in the community. Where we come from, say the concrete jungle, where we haven't arrived in our body, we're out of body, we haven't climbed into our skin. That's what I call it. Somebody
Mm.
might be stuck in their toe, somebody stuck in their head, right? Um, so what's something your clients haven't expect, or like what you saw through a plant medicine environment in the program, that you like, something you didn't see that and you didn't expect, like something I'm sure it blew your top. All that.
Yeah, there's been so many, so I don't know where to start. I get one of my favorite ones was actually, I was on WhatsApp with a client after she had come back from retreat, and she was in a really great space. And one of the things that she said was, it's been really great to have this clear vision. And so then when we spoke on the phone, I was like, oh, that's great. So you know what you want to do with your life, and what's next for you. And she's like, no, 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 no. I've never been able to see like this. It's like I'm seeing the whole world all over again, because it's just I'm noticing like I can just see so much further and see so much clearer, and I'm just picking up all of this information that I've never had this ability to pick up this information. And so that was a really beautiful one to witness, because it's really stayed with her. The other one that I've actually, this one wasn't one of our clients, but is was the client of one of our healers, is this one's pretty far out. So it was actually during an iboga ceremony. This person had set an intention for like a year out, and it was to clear all karma. And so they had just every day they'd meditating on clearing all karma. And in the space of a 3-day ceremony with iboga, they literally cleared all current life karma and all past life karma. And then 3 weeks later than that, they consciously meditated out.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's one that I don't speak about much, but I know, given the nature of your work and your podcast, I thought that's one that's a little bit more far out there. It's definitely, it's got a variety of opinions associated with it, but you could tell that, or my mentor could tell that he had really cleared absolutely everything, and he was just so grateful, and in such a great place. And yeah, just he said that he wanted there to be some space and time between that experience and actually leaving the world, and wanted that to be done in the right way, in the right time, in the right place. And so he did.
Oh, that's called Inshallah Ashe. That's awesome. I love it. So how are you bringing the difference in psychedelic and plant medicine industry? Like, how are you bringing that in? I mean, I have a pretty good feeling, but I want you to share your insight.
Yeah, so in essence, the thing that we're looking to achieve for our clients is for them to sustainably achieve a higher level of consciousness, right? And so whether we're talking about healing, the past traumas, whether we're talking about releasing the lower level emotions, whether we're talking about even physical healing, it all relates back to consciousness. And so it's everything that's occurring in our lives has a spiritual significance. And so as people come to recognize that, they're not the body, they're not the mind, but they're this much more expanded thing, then what we're trying to do is not just to guide them to that realization, potentially while they're on retreat and they're having a profound, psychedelic experience, dare we say, but rather that that's how they're living. And so I think these experiences shine a light down a path to the realm of the possible and states of being and states of consciousness that are achievable. And then it's our work to actually begin to make those steps towards these states of consciousness and towards this understanding on a daily basis. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is to get clients ready for these experiences so that they can see farther, and then ultimately provide them the tools so that they can continue that walk, and that it's not, like I was kind of stuck in the cycle for years, where you go on a plant medicine retreat, life returns to normal, you had this very profound experience with these insights and the downloads, and it was also clear. So clearly, what I need to do is just go to another plant medicine retreat. And I was, kind of on that loop for quite some time. So, really encouraging clients to, yes, if you're going to go do more retreats, that make sure that each of them is really serving as a foundation for deep improvements to the quality of life and everyday experience. And if that's not the case, then let's revisit a few things, because there's probably some opportunities here that are being missed. So by pairing, expert facilitation, expert guidance, people who have successfully elevated their consciousness to a higher state, not to say that they don't still get upset from time to time, but they've reached a higher vibration, then they're able to adequately guide and harmonize clients to a higher vibration as well.
So where do you see plant medicine, the industry, going in the future? I feel like it's going to be like a pod for healing, like a whole little. So I
It
mean,
is,
the like nature,
you
it's,
know,
there's all these things, but that's like nature's doing. I feel like honestly we've gotten to we're out of balance anyway, the whole globe. We're too technology driven, and plants, energetically are the opposing force for that element, right? To bring it back to balance. So I mean just even nurturing your regular indoor plant is a medicine, right? A green thumb. I
absolutely.
don't have one. I mean, I try. I do try. I do nurture my village. I do my other things. But like, how do you see? Like, I have a whole woo going on. But where do you see this going in the future?
Yeah, so I guess I love what you said about balancing energy, right? Because this work is all about balancing the masculine and the feminine within each of us, and I think clearly, collectively, there's an imbalance there as well, where the masculine is far outweighing the feminine, and there's a disconnect, right? Fundamentally, we are disconnected. Many of us are disconnected from ourselves. I would have laughed at that notion 5 years ago, before I started down this path. And then when I recognized how deeply disconnected I was from myself, I was just fascinated and so humbled, and overjoyed that, the improvements to the human experience that were available. And so, because we're disconnected from ourselves, we're also disconnected from those around us. We've been also disconnected from communities, right? Very few of us feel like we have community. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, we're disconnected from planet. And so the disconnect starts on the inside, and then it just perpetuates outside. And I think a large part of this is also about recognizing that truth to some degree is subjective, and we all have a different truth. And so I think, now more than ever in history, people are beginning to understand that the way that we see the world is all very different, and there's no right and wrong. And so if you want people to honor the way that you want to live, then that needs to be reciprocated, in the sense that you need to honor how it is that other people want to live. And so I think it's got, that understanding is something that's being, I think, forced upon us pretty quickly, by the virus that's making itself known across the globe. So I think, to come back to plant medicine and where it's going, I think, there's a lot of negative assessments out there. There's a lot of people who are full of doubt and skepticism and judgment about who's doing what and who should be doing what, and the right way to do this and the wrong way to do that. But ultimately, evolution is there's higher order at work. And so, I don't spend too much time worrying about that. There's people who are against the medical model. There's people who think you can only be done in these particular ways. But ultimately, human beings gravitate towards the things that work. And so the right things will naturally evolve in terms of the practices, in terms of the medicines, in terms of the energetic work. All of the right things will come to the fore. And the moment that people plateau in one area is the moment that they begin to explore another area. And so, I think that will be um, it won't be a straightforward evolution, but the right things will win out over time. The other thing that I think is that we're a little bit down the wrong path at the moment, in the sense that we're putting a lot of emphasis on 2 and 3 year diplomas for psychotherapists, integration psychotherapists, to go through a college degree. And it's like, yeah, okay, but that's not really the nature of the work. It's much more energetic in nature. And so, I think there's going to be fundamentally a real it's going to get even worse in terms of supply and demand being quite out of whack, particularly when we talk about quality work. So I'm pleased to say that as of today, we've just signed up to the Fireside Project. If people are interested in plant medicine or interested in donating to a good cause, I highly recommend it. They're basically like a 911 support hotline for psychedelic harm reduction. So there's a lot of people out there. Obviously, our services aren't cheap, but there's a lot of people out there who want to be better, who want to heal, and will be, of course, taking action themselves with, whatever substances are available, down the block, and at a much more reasonable price than spending a week in Costa Rica or Tulum. So I think it's very important that, as this ecosystem evolves, that there's, a focus on not just, the wealthy people healing, but also that there is support and guidance to a broader collective of people. And so, I think initiatives such as this will really facilitate some support for people who are taking a little bit more of a do it yourself approach, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's how the plant medicine could possibly lose its quality and its value, because the integration is kind of dumbed down in a way.
I am. Yeah, it's I think, again, the right things will emerge. There's a lot of excitement around this at the moment, and so we're just seeing like a exponential growth in interest, right? And because the narrative is really around the lower levels of consciousness, then those are the people that are attracted to trying this, and those are probably the people who most need to be expertly facilitated, because they've got the deepest stuff to work through during these experiences. So we very much encourage anyone who is exploring this to definitely find a trusted therapist, a trusted coach, to help you, prepare for, and yeah, to get the most out of the experience.
Yes, I mean, I totally think energy really is the medicine of the future, whether it comes from light, sounds, plant, whatever. Um, I
Mm,
think that's where we skipped to the wrong beat, went down the wrong path, whatever you want to call it. Um, but we're trying to do like a circle back. And as far as I call it the experience was like, we had another experience like in the 80s, which was a wake up call in itself, but now we're having like a global wake up call, and to wake people up to get out of the concrete jungle, and what you just said, what is living, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what's for me has been interesting is, um, having spent so many years in the corporate world and having many friends there as well, in starting Behold retreats, I thought there would be a much more receptive audience to people from the business world that are successful and performance driven, and want to improve their brain function and improve their connection to purpose and all of those things. And there is a market for that, don't get me wrong, but I've been surprised by how few of the people from my broader business and social networks have actually shown interest. I've been very surprised, and so that's been an interesting realization that actually for most people there needs to be quite a realized significant problem. And what I found for so many of those friends of mine in the corporate world, and old colleagues as well, is the question that really gets through to them is, if there was one thing in life that would make you truly happy, truly fulfilled, what is that one thing? And virtually none of them can answer that question. Their eyes roll back, because I think the answer to that question is not stored in the mind. The answer to that question is stored in a higher place, and for various reasons, we've all been largely disconnected from that higher place. And so, that's kind of the inquiry-led approach that has worked to opening a few more doors and opening a few more minds to self-exploration, whether that's through psychedelics, or indeed, as you mentioned, there's plenty of other modalities out there that are highly effective, right? Whether we talk about breath work or meditation, or the various forms of energy healing that are out there, there's many ways to get there, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what it is that resonates with another.
It's what sings to your soul. So,
I
is
like
what
that.
else would you like to share with my audience?
Yeah. Look, I think the what else is interesting in relation to plant medicine? I think there's an aspect of this work which is really about harmonization, right? So we're trying to get mind, body, heart, and spirit vibrating at a single resonance. And then once that's the case, then the medicine is pulling us up into a higher vibration still. And so as that takes place, then all of the stuff, the shadow, the lower level emotions and the limiting beliefs and all of those sorts of things tend to become amplified, because it's the things that are, it's the lower level vibrations that are keeping us from reaching a higher harmonization. And so that's one of the ways that I like to describe this, that resonates with people who are more kind of physically oriented. And through these experiences, no doubt you've had many of these yourself, Tonya. But we can come to recognize so many things about how the world, the nature between self and the outside world. And so whether we talk about the interconnectivity of all things, or universal love, and then the perspective on the world and the reflection of our current level of consciousness collectively, becomes a little bit dim, right? The scientific method becomes, it's something that I used to believe in 100%. And I was like, the scientific method is the standard for how we should make all decisions. And, if it's not science, then it doesn't work. And, once you break through to, post rationality, and understand that there are unifying and binding laws in higher order, a deterministic approach to a clinical trial for spiritual work just sounds just really quite silly. Actually, it doesn't make sense. And so then you begin to think, well, do I think that just for this, or do I think that more broadly? And so as you begin to unpack that, then I was a very as I mentioned, I was an atheistic and deterministic person, materialist kind of worldview. And so as that starts to crumble, then the way that we see the world can shift, and so much for the better, because we just come to recognize our own inherent divinity, and then of course by virtue of that experience come to recognize it in others. And it's got very profound implications for the shift that we're all going through, in terms of moving from fear-based and egoic concerns to something that's more holistic and oriented around love, where we're trying to do good things for future generations, rather than just try to stretch our financial capacities to the maximum to buy a third investment property, so that maybe Junior can get into the university that we didn't have the chance to go to.
I totally agree that to me that's such a funny, because I mean, I don't. What's interesting? Well, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Pull that weed. Never mind. Yeah, I agree. So I'm going to have all the notes where you can get a hold of Jonathan and Behold Retreat in the show notes. And is there anywhere else besides what I'm going to put in the show notes where people could connect with you online?
Yeah, I think one, LinkedIn is always good. We're on Instagram at behold_retreats, or otherwise, if you want to come and explore a journey, come and visit our website and click around, see if you like what you see, and let's have a chat and connect. There's no book now button on our website. You have to speak with a real human.
Absolutely. That's always kind anymore and rare. That's a rare vintage. Um,
Indeed.
so I'm going to have Jonathan on again. We're going to dive deep into the plants themselves because I have my own little idea there. But thanks for joining me. And as always, I will see you on the other side. Inshallah, Ashe.